Good afternoon, everyone. This is County Executive Pat Ryan, and really excited to be joined by my friend and our district attorney, Dave Clegg. Sorry we're running a few minutes late here. We had to make sure we had the right setup with the distance and that we're all safe, so we are. And thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about the COVID situation, which is improved from our last update, thankfully, 48 hours ago. And then we're going to talk about some of the really exciting criminal justice reforms and restorative justice work that the DA has really spearheaded for years now and is really coming to fruition, and that we're funding in our proposed budget for next year. So we'll get to that in a minute. But first, starting with the COVID situation, by the numbers, we're at 2,343 total cases, and we have crossed the threshold of over 100,000 tests complete. Thankfully, the vast majority of those folks have recovered, 2,093 recovered, and we have not had, since the last update, any fatalities, thankfully, as well. In terms of the hospitalization situation, let me make sure I have the right numbers here. Yes, okay. In terms of the hospitalization situation, we currently have 5 Ulster County residents hospitalized for COVID-19. That's up 1 from 48 hours ago, but still very much within the normal average, as you can see on the graph. In terms of active cases, we're slightly ticking up here to 162. That's still, again, as you can see on the chart, pretty much within the average since the end of June, but we're continuing to watch that active case count closely, given what's happening to our south in Rockland and Orange counties, as well as, of course, in parts of New York City. The majority of the optimism comes from the numbers over the last 48 hours with new positive cases. So in the last 48 hours, we've tested just over 2,000 people, 2,083 to be exact, which is a pretty high number for 48 hours. And of those 2,000, we've had 13 new positive cases. So that puts us down to a much more comfortable 0.62% new infection rate. And if you remember, 48 hours ago in our update, we were well over 1%. We were at 1.3+%, which was the worst we had been in a while. So thankfully, that is lowering back down. And as I said last time, our goal is to keep it that way and continue to take this seriously, as I know everybody tuning in is definitely doing, and the vast majority of people in the county are doing. So thank you for that. Hospitalization capacity and treatment capacity, as I said, we currently are at 5 and remain with more than sufficient near-term capacity and long-term capacity if needed. And as District Attorney Clegg is doing right now, and I'm only not doing so that I can speak, please remember that the way that we keep this in check is to wear a mask, maintain that social distancing, and continue to do hand washing and use hand sanitizer. As we do especially see the numbers going up in other parts of the state, and within 15, 20 miles of the county, it's even more important that we keep our guard up here so that we can keep the numbers in check and ultimately save lives and preserve the health of our residents. So let's continue to take this seriously and continue to lead as we have as a county. And on that note, in terms of leading as a county, Dave, thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Pat. My pleasure.
And we were saying before we came in and started the session here, it's really nice to actually be in elected office with you and working on an agenda that I know you've been working on for a long time, that we both campaigned on, and trying to figure out how do we bring to life this idea of justice for all of the residents, every person in our county. And I think we all look to you for your leadership on this, And what I'm excited to do is talk just briefly about, in the budget that I just proposed last week, how we're going to put our money where our mouth is and actually fund these programs and expand these programs. I'll mostly turn it to you, but at a high level, in the 2021 budget that we proposed last week, we have a pretty significant expansion of what's been a very successful program, a restorative justice program that is initially focused on young people under 18. For the first time in Ulster County, we'll now fund the expansion of that program to provide restorative justice programs and supports to those young adults age 18 to 26. So that's a significant expansion of that program, really on the idea that this has worked very well, this new alternative and innovative approach, and now we want to bring it to more folks. And as a segue to hand it to you, Dave, just to put some data behind it, because we always like to do that, in the county already, thanks to, you, I think years ago, started this work in our school districts, and with our youth, we've had nearly 300 restorative justice circles, and the outcome from that has been hugely successful, bringing the recidivism, the repeat rate down to 6%, which is well below the national average of 40%. So I'll hand it to you with that segue and just commend you for your leadership on this and your work on this. And I'm glad that we're codifying this in our budget. And I know you're working on a lot more programming for this to come. So excited to hear about that. And thanks again for joining.
Thank you, Pat. And I want to thank you for your leadership on this issue, because that's a starting point of enabling us to move forward with this program. And so it really feels great to have a partnership here in Ulster County, where criminal justice reform is something that we both care about very much. And how can we make our system of justice more equitable, more fair for everybody? And so we're both behind that issue as best we can. And this is a step forward. So restorative justice is something I've actually been involved in since I was the chair of the Human Rights Commission, which goes way back. And people in leadership positions like Judith Kay, who was the chief judge of our Court of Appeals, was leading on this issue for the schools, because it starts with trying to make sure that no one is left behind. And that's serious in terms of making sure the kids in our school have the chance to get the education and have the chance to go and become productive citizens. So we've been working with that with the schools for, it's now in a 5-year period. Kingston School District has adopted that. So now we are trying to do something new. We're gonna move it to the adult range. We're gonna move it into the criminal area. And so that is a step forward. These programs have been done across the country in major cities. And like our 180 program, it has shown remarkable success in reducing the amount of recidivism, in helping the victims repair the harm that's happened to them, and allowing the defendant to be part of that. Now, the one thing I want to make sure everybody understands is this is something where people are held accountable. That's the starting place. If you're not accountable for the harm you've done, for the wrong you've committed, then this process doesn't work for you. But if you are, then the victim, it's a victim-centered program where they get to decide where justice is, and the community becomes involved in how do you repair the harm. And at the end, the good and really important part of this is that the person who's committed the harm has an opportunity to re-engage in the community in a positive way. So rehabilitation is a big part of it. Stopping recidivism is a big part of it. Making our community safer is a big part of this. And healing the community at the same time. So it's a really positive program. There may be questions out there about how we're going to do it. We're going to be very carefully choosing and vetting the cases that we're going to bring. It's going to be nonviolent felonies and misdemeanors. We will make sure that these cases are followed, monitored, and that it's supported by the community and services out there so that we can repair the harm and rehabilitate at the same time.
And this is, to my understanding, will be one of the first outside really some very forward-leaning larger cities to do this nationally.
That's right. That's right.
Which is again a credit to you. And can you explain I imagine you've participated in a few of these,
Yes.
the actual circle.
Circles. Yes.
I think when you hear how that goes, for people that may not understand, it's really powerful. And I've now heard and seen a few and heard from those that have participated that it's just a much more, I mean, restorative is in the name, but
Yes.
Everyone walks away feeling like, man, we actually worked through something as a community and as someone who is a victim and as someone who made a mistake, and rather than sort of this punitive cycle. Can you talk a little bit about, like, what does this actually look like?
Yeah, retribution is not part of this, right? We're not out there for vengeance or punishment for the sake of punishment. What these circles allow you to do is to hear the other side. So many times, offenders who commit these crimes, don't appreciate the consequences.
Right.
Don't fully see how badly the victim has been harmed by this. Don't see that it continues perhaps for a lifetime. This offers the opportunity for the victim to be heard, for an opportunity for the defendant to understand, and then to change, right, and then to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So it's that process where there's dialogue and an opening of whatever concerns and troubles that have caused this to happen, and then a way forward from it. There's a video that I saw from your probation department, and it was about a bunch of youngsters, or young and older teenagers up in Albany, that basically got into a gang fight. And they put them all together in a room with their parents and with leaders in the community and talked it out. And it started at a really negative place, and then by the end, it was in a really positive place. And everybody realized, we don't want to act like this in our community. We don't need to act like this in our community. And all of a sudden, doors are opening. Yeah. So that's what can happen with these conferencing circles.
Yeah, and one of the more powerful testimonials I heard was actually from some of the school leaders in Kingston that have been doing this. And this one school leader said, I'll be honest, I was skeptical about this to start, but having now seen it play out, I was blown away at how effective and how the whole culture and the whole feeling in the school has changed, because it's and the idea that you actually are going to look in the eye the person that you wronged or that you were wronged by and have to wrestle with that, rather than having sort of all these, no offense to the lawyers, the lawyers and all these sort of rigid things.
Right.
So I'm excited to see this continue to build, and I know I think it's important that you did address that this works not in every case, but
that's right.
Everybody, all the parties have to be open to this, and you and your team will be sort of screening that and making sure that it's.
There will be a double process, right? So first, my office will make sure that the victim is in favor of this. And if the victim is in favor of, and it's the right kind of case where it's amenable to this kind of system, then it will be again vetted by the people who are coordinating the program itself.
Right.
And Family of Woodstock, that has worked and run the 180 program on the conferencing circle side, they're very experienced. They're terrific at what they do. I want to shout out to Family of Woodstock for their cooperation and collaboration on this issue. So they'll vet it again to make sure, once again, that it works. Yep. There's a confidentiality part of this, that once you engage in this, of course, the defendant has to be very upfront about what he or she did, and that will not be used against them at a later point in time. So you have this openness and honesty as part of this process, and that's the only way you get to a good result. Right.
This is fantastic, and I also want to give. I want to echo the credit to and the thanks to the Family of Woodstock. Also want to thank and recognize that our partners in the county legislature have been involved in driving a lot of this. The chair of the Law Enforcement Committee, Legislator Eve Walter, has been working on this along with you and many others for a long time. So I want to thank her. And as well as our sheriff, who I know is committed to this, and hopefully soon a new public defender, who I know is committed to these practices. So to have all of us working together, trying to change what I think everyone recognizes is an in many cases, an unjust and unequal system. So it's one thing to be frustrated. It's another thing to actually say, let's do it differently. So again, thanks, Dave, for your leadership on that. And I'm sure we'll adjust as we this. I hope all the residents of the county are proud of that. I know I am.
And I want to thank Eve Walter, too, for her leadership on this issue. And there's been a subcommittee that I've been working with through the legislature that Eve is in charge of. And much progress toward this program has been made through that process. And so we have leadership at every level here in Ulster County. It's pretty special.
Yeah. And I think the people of the county, too, loud and clear, have said this is something that's important to us. So this is how it's supposed to work, right?
Yes.
Sort of small d democracy in action. So it's an exciting time, and even as we're dealing with COVID and so many people with facing great challenges and pressures, I think it's even more important than ever that we use this as a moment to reckon with what's not working and fix it, and not just go back to some of the old ways. So. Again, thanks to you, Dave, and to your team for all you're doing, including a lot of great work on addressing the opioid issue that we've talked about. I was proud a few weeks ago to stand with your team and the urgent team and the sheriff and show and talk about the progress we're making there. So across the board, excited to have you as a partner, and unless you want to add any more, we'll wrap it up. And
just right back at you. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks. So on that note of thanks, thank you to each of you for joining in. Thanks to the Radio Kingston team, as well as Diane and Manuel for helping us spread the word here with all the good things happening and our progress with COVID. Thanks to all those that have been on the front lines that we thank every update, but which continue to merit the thanks for the work that you've done and are doing and will do in the future. Our next update will be on Tuesday at 2 p.m. In the meantime, let's keep this positive progress that we've had as it relates to COVID, and we'll update you with anything significant that happens between now and then. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and stay safe, healthy, and be resilient.